Are we live?
We're live.
Okay. Well, great. It's wonderful to talk to you all. I wish I could see you all while I had my slides up. And as I was thinking about this series, and I was thinking about if I was in your shoes and some of the questions we've had, what I was thinking about is bringing you kind of what the latest is that we're thinking at MIT. And for that regard, we teach a class in corporate entrepreneurship, which Carly Chase is the overall coordinator of that. And I don't know if we can bring her on to talk about the class. Carly, can Carly talk for 2 minutes?
Carly, if you're connected, please raise your hand so we can put you on stage.
So while Carly's doing that, in this class,
there she is.
Okay, Carly, why don't you just tell the people here about the class, and it might be something that people are interested in offering up projects to next year.
Nice to have you here.
Yeah. So, Bill, do you mind if I just jump in?
No, please, Carly.
Okay, perfect. I think that just sort of a brief, I'll talk just for 2 or 3 minutes, but just a brief introduction to the way that we're thinking about this class. I think that in terms of the topics about corporate entrepreneurship, which we've been talking about a lot, or Bill has in the last 2 times he's met with this group, and now sort of bringing in the entrepreneurial mindset to that conversation, I think sort of the framing of this class and how we're thinking about it will really bring everything together. So what I wanted to share, and these were the slides that we used just in class the other day, is, of course, when you think about us as an entity, and maybe you've read Bill's book or heard Andres and Alberto talk about the work that we do at the Trust Center, of course, we work with a lot of startup entrepreneurs. That's really our bread and butter. It's the core of what we do. And the truth is that when you think about what an entrepreneur is and the way that we describe it, it's somebody who has that skill set of what we would say a Navy SEAL, meaning somebody who understands how to build a company, right? Who understands that skill set of venture creation. But even more importantly, I would start to argue, is not just the skill set of how you create a company, but really the mindset of that founder who has to thrive in a constant environment of chaos, who has to deal with constant ambiguity, and really basically has to stay adaptable to survive, right? The first to go from the 0 to 1 stage to the scaling stage. I mean, founders really need to embody the spirit of a pirate and the skill set of a Navy SEAL to get anything done in their world. But the truth is, and why we think that this is a really applicable subject for so many more people, in addition to startup founders, is because this is the reality of the majority of our world. This is not just the world of a startup founder anymore, right? When we think about the unbelievable amount of challenges that we're all facing, regardless of where we live or who we are or what our profession is, right? I think the last 12 months have taught us all that everything's becoming a little bit more chaotic, as I think we've already shared this line with you all, the way that we describe it, that our co-teacher, Sue Siegel, said so profoundly at a conference of ours a couple of years ago. The pace of change today is as slow as it's ever going to be, meaning that things are just going to speed up, become more complex, right? And we can just witness it again within what we've all been going through over the last couple of years, over the last year, rather. And so the truth is that when we think about how this applies to the corporate world, what we're really excited to bring to our students, many of which will go immediately to the corporate world or probably will work at a large company at some point in their life, that they too can really feel empowered with this entrepreneurial skill set and mindset to go and solve challenges that are happening within their organizations or take advantage of opportunities that they're seeing. And the way that we're thinking about how to teach this, and Bill, I think, will go through this in his slides, is the same way that we think about discipline entrepreneurship as a very methodical and intentional framework. We want to bring the same rigor, the same body of knowledge to the corporate world. And this quick cartoon that's on your screen is really how I think a lot of that world thinks about entrepreneurship. They think about, hey, I'm just going to set up this innovation lab. I'm going to hire these entrepreneurs and things will just be fine. And the truth is that that's an okay attitude to start with. But what we're really excited about building at MIT is a true frameworks, true bodies of knowledge, so that it's not just some sort of innovation lab that's stuck within any organization, but that the solutions that they employ to solve whatever challenge they're facing or take advantage of any opportunity that is presents itself, again, really that the solution matches that problem or that opportunity, just the way that we teach startups at MIT. So Bill, I will throw it back to you. I hope that was
leave this slide up for a second. This is a perfect segue. So in the class that Carly leads, that I participated in, as Sue Siegel does, we have 30 leaders from large organizations, not just corporations, but nonprofits, government, academic institutions. And I really like the slide right here, where it's called the Innovation Theater Series. And you'll say, oh, this is just a comic, it's very funny. But I had the CEO of a very large firm, a person who I think is very smart, come to me and say, Bill, we need you to help us put an accelerator into our company. And I said, why do you need an accelerator? And he said, because we're not innovative enough. And I said, why are you not innovative enough? And he said, because we don't have an accelerator. And at that point, you realize the frustration with this, because it's circular logic. You don't know what problem you're really solving. You haven't defined it. And so there's a lot of innovation theater out there. And I didn't know there was a whole comic strip about this, but this is precisely what happens. And today's talk is called The Long Tail Effects of Adapting Your Corporate Culture to Be More Entrepreneurial. In other words, how do we take entrepreneurship and not get this scenario that we have here? How do we do more than theater? So thank you, Carly. And for those of you who are interested, reach out through the Cube. And we have one Cube member who is doing a project in our class, and the students are very enthused about it. So thank you, Andreas and Alberto. And so so what I want to do is just kind of take you through how we talked about this in the class. All right, so corporate. So let me just talk about how you build, take entrepreneurship, the mindset, the skill set, and the way of operating, and actually successfully incorporate that into an organization that sustains it for the long term. All right, and I think this is really important, and it's actually quite easy to understand as I'm going to explain it. Yet people don't really understand, they don't think through it as clearly. So, so the first thing, I think of this, the analogy that I will use, which will be somewhat imperfect, but I think a good one for a good metaphor, is think of the company as a patient. You're a doctor and the company is a patient. They're a human being, but you want to treat them, you want to make them better. So what's the first thing you do? The first thing you do is you do a diagnosis. You don't give them medicine until you have done a pretty rigorous diagnosis, if you want to make sure that it's going to work and sustain itself. So first step one is, let's do an assessment, a diagnosis. The second step you do, which you might say, then give them medication after you do that. But actually, no, what you do if you're a doctor and there's a patient, you talk to the patient about what the diagnosis is, and you get their buy-in for the treatment, because it will probably be some medication, there'll have to be adherence, they might have to do some other things, change their lifestyle. So you need to get them to understand, what your diagnosis, what your assessment is giving you. And then the third thing is, you then have to look at the available treatments, be they medication, be they kind of some other treatments, rehab, whatever, physical therapy. And then you have to give them, here is the treatment. So first, diagnose. Second, talk to the patient to make sure that they're going to accept what you do, understanding that there is a problem. Third that you need to do is come up with what is the treatment that you're going to give them. And then after you've given them the treatment, the fourth step is continue to work with the patient to make sure they adhere to that. They continue to do the treatments. They continue to take the medication. They continue to do the other things that they should do. And that is a very good metaphor for what you need to do to make entrepreneurship stick in a big organization. Now, I'll make these slides available to the Cube afterwards, because some of them might be a little hard to read. But let's just step through what we mean by that. So the first thing you would do is you would understand what is the root cause problem of our organization. And you might say, that's easy, it's the culture. Actually, that's not how you do it. What you would do is, and I prefer to use the system dynamics approach. It was Peter Senge has described, he wrote the fifth discipline, and there are other people. It's called the Iceberg Model. And in the Iceberg Model, what you do before you diagnose the patient, in this case, the corporation, you look at what are the series of events that happen, and you just list those. And once you've listed all of them that you can come up, these are actual real things. They aren't people's interpretations. I'm going to give you an example here. But once you list all these things that seem to have gone wrong, that were events, then we have to say, all right, let's take all these events and let's cluster them into patterns. All right. So what you do is we're diagnosing the patient. How do we do that? We look at all the events that have happened, and I'll give you an example of that. And then what we do is we cluster those together in groups. This looks like we got a product problem. This looks like we got a culture problem. This looks like we have an organizational problem. And you kind of put those together. And then once you do that, you get the underlying root cause. But this is very, very specific. And the root cause, what that means is there's some sort of mental model, some way your organization, something that's more intangible. And then there are literally physical artifacts that you might have in your organization. The way the real estate is built, where you put your coffee maker, how you see people in meetings. So we are creatures of habit, as I'm going to talk about. And you have to think about what are the underlying causes, mental models, intangible things, and very tangible things that create these patterns of behavior, that create these events. We tend to react to events and often overreact to events. When what we really should do, if we're going to be scientific about this, is look at the events, cluster them together, and then start seeing, oh, these are the patterns of behavior, and then what's causing those patterns of behavior. That's what this iceberg model does. And I would argue that when you look at problem areas in organizations, you can start to see there's kind of like a list of these things. The companies usually have problems with their plans. They have problems with their infrastructure. They have problems with their processes. They have problems with the agents, the people in their organization. And then there's this other thing called culture. So there might be other things, but generally they fall into these 5 buckets. And each one of them is relevant. Do we actually have a plan? Do we have the infrastructure to get it done, this plan? Do we have processes to ensure that while we have the infrastructure, we do this on an ongoing basis? And do we actually have the people to get it done? And do we have the culture to kind of reinforce that in the more intangible ways than are just the processes? So the plan is not just, the plan, but it's also resource allocation. So again, I'll make these slides available to you. So that's how we're going to diagnose it. We're going to look for these types of things. And then afterwards, these are the types of treatments that we could apply that you could facilitate or generate value with innovation strategy, physical space, employee culture and training, external connectivity, and then you could other ways you could actually generate it. These are kind of the things that facilitate it. On the right, you'd have internal R&D. How do we ideate to get those ideas? How do we create new ventures? How do we kind of make investments? Be it a corporate venture capital, be it M&A, be it scouting, be it fund of funds, whatever it is. And then how do we partner? And so this is kind of the treatment, the medication, and the things that will apply. But first, we have to diagnose the problem. Last time we talked about, the necessity to run 2 operating systems. And so I just want to make sure that we understand when we come up with a treatment here, one of these programs, be it an accelerator, an incubator, a corporate venture capital, a new training program, and innovation audit teams, where are they going to be focused on? Because if they're focused on the left here, the core business, that's going to be a different type of cadence, a different type of mentality, different type of approach. If they're focused on the right-hand side, that will be a different one. And so this red wall between it is that firewall, which allows you to have these two operating systems working together. But one side, the one on the left, is much, much bigger than we're built here. And that's going to be where you're generating your profit. That's the real business that you have here to generate profits. The one on the right is your future businesses that you're helping to generate. But you have to separate these things. You have to allow them to operate with different mindsets, skill sets, and way of operating, and incentive systems and the like. But well, that's what the red firewall is for between them. But you have to have some level of connectivity that the needs from the core business, because that's where you're going to monetize it, will get over to give some focus to your innovation lab or your new business generator, or your entrepreneurial organization, whatever you want to call it. And then they have to be thrown back. If you think about this, it might be, a utility company in Spain that's working, that's their core business on the left, but they've got to start thinking of new things. They've got some space at the cube. They're working in a totally different environment, but a totally different cadence. They dress differently when they come to work. Their meetings look different, but they have to be working on the problems of that business on the left. And when done, it's not successful unless they throw things back into that big core business, which will have impact. And small things could have giant impact, which is not true if you're just a startup. So this is one of the fundamental kind of principles of corporate entrepreneurship. But going on, let me just talk about how do you do this. So if we took a company we'll call Acme, we make a list of all the events. Competitors introduced a new product category this year that addresses a new customer need for the product. The customer did that. We didn't do it. And so all of a sudden, our company is looking at them going, wow, why are they ahead of us? The competitor also made a surprising acquisition that significantly expanded their market reach. Surprising is the key word here. How did we get surprised here? Did we not look at this other companies that they were buying? So you can see there's some sort of problem here from these events. But we're not clustering them together yet. The product roadmap has the same categories as the one 3 years ago, while the competitor's roadmap is evolving much more dynamically than ours. We have low net promoter score on some products, but the products are highly reliable and there's a low return rate. But there's also a low demand for. So this looks like it's not a problem, but it kind of shows the conservative nature of what's going on. The high net promoter score on some new products that they bring to market, but they're not selling. So the customers who get them like them, but we're not seeing that revenue increase. New R&D projects routinely get good press in the beginning, and then they seem to just die off. And they get that initial bump of great press, and then they just kind of sunset. The company lost several key members from the engineering team, even though we've identified that's a key part. The lights at the office are out by 5 or 6 o'clock every day, even when there are deadlines looming. There seems to be no sprinting. Professional development budget is consistently underutilized. So you're seeing high turnover. You're seeing people don't seem to be that engaged, and they're not even using the development budget. We're not saying what the problem is at this point. We're just observing these events. So if we took this, then we would cluster these together, kind of looking at the patterns of behavior, and kind of note that they're slow to understand sea change, what's going on around. They're not in touch with the market. There's a talent exodus. The workforce seems unmotivated. It's complacent culture. And so we start to cluster these together, and then we start to figure out, which of these, this should be prioritization. Which ones, so we see these things, well-built products, but low NPS, slow to recognize sea change, complacent cultures. We can't do everything all at once. So which one are we going to address? Just like an entrepreneur, we pick a beachhead market. Which of these 5 things, we've looked at all the events that we have, we're clustering them together. These are the 5 areas that we seem to get caught off guard by. Which one is the highest priority that we should try to go after first? Because if you try to catch 5 rabbits, you're sure as heck not going to catch any. So let's just focus on getting one first. Which one will it be? Well, let's address this well-built products but low NPS. And then once we focus on that, we'll then start driving down to find out what are the problems? Why are we consistently getting well-built products but low NPS? And that's when you ask why, and you drive down to the root cause. So when you get down to the root cause, I would tell you that it's very often, these types of things. There's more, but there's one of the most common ones and the easiest to address is insufficient employee knowledge and skills. Often people are motivated to be entrepreneurial, but they don't know how, and they don't have an opportunity to learn how to do it. They might watch videos, they might read books, but do we give them the knowledge put into practice? This is the apprenticeship model. Do we really allocate resources? Do we have the right organizational design? Do we have executive level support and awareness of the alternatives? I would tell you this would be a good checklist. Then you would choose which tool do you want to implement towards that one project prioritized thing you're going to do? How are you going to address, will that address the root causes that you're talking about here? And it's an accelerator. If we're going to do an accelerator, why are we doing that accelerator? What's the problem we're trying to solve? To make sure your accelerator is not trying to generate new businesses, it's going to be used more towards training if that's your problem. Or your problem is you're not connected outside to the external world, to universities and other hubs. Okay, our accelerator is going to integrate them into us that way. So the same tool can be used for different objectives. And you need to be very clear about what's the problem you're going to solve, what's the objective, and then when you put the tool in place, it solves that one. This is much more systematic. The last thing I'll do, Alberto, do I still have time? Can I have 10 more minutes?
We have time. I will be here close to you.
Good. I want to get to questions, but I just want to close the circle here. Remember, I mentioned you have to diagnose and you have to give a treatment. But before I said that, you have to talk to the patient and you have to then get them to buy into it and implement it. And just like with a patient, an organization has kind of a way to think about it, and you have to make them receptive to this new program that you're going to bring in. And step 12 of disciplined entrepreneurship and step 12 and 13 are all about the decision-making unit and the decision-making process. So salespeople know this, and what you need to do is you need to understand the organization and understand who is the end user, who is the economic buyer, and probably most of all, who is the champion that's going to push this program through the organization. At the end of the day, there might be one group or one person that's more than one of these, or it might be all three. But the champion is the one who's going to push to make the program happen. The end user is the one who's actually going to be sitting in the seat doing the program or initiative, i.e. the treatment, as we talked about at the patient level. And the last one is who is going to pay for it? Because the person who pays for it is going to want to see a return on investment. This analogy is perfect to what we do with entrepreneurs to try to sell our new product. So we have to figure out who in the organization is the champion, who is going to be the end user, who is going to be the economic buyer, and then how do we convince them to advocate, to evangelize, to support, or at a minimum, not block what we're doing. And this is the worksheets, and again, I'll make all this available to you, that you would develop within an organization. And this is a very simple example, and it will get a lot more complicated in big organizations. And so once you understand that, you understand who's the end user, who's the economic buyer, and who's the champion. You think about how are we going to get to those people to influence them, to let them know before you implement your accelerator, your incubator, your entrepreneurial training program, your corporate VC. These are events. This is the pattern of behavior seen. This is the root cause. This is why we're implementing it. This is why it will be good for you. It's not necessarily going to be good right away, It might take a little while, but I want you to understand why we're doing this and why you're making the investment. So you're managing expectations, you're getting their buy-in, because implementing these programs, anyone who doesn't want them will come up with a million reasons why you shouldn't do them, a million reasons why they're not working, because innovation is not a straight line. It's fraught with lots of failure and lots of challenges. So you need to get buy-in in the organization even before you implement it. You then implement it, and then you do exactly the same thing afterwards, all right? So we talk about this. Step 12 is who makes the decision. Step 13 is how they make the decision. And we would go through and talk about, how do they really realize they have a problem? What options do they think they have? How would they analyze those options? How would they actually acquire a product? So this is from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but it applies directly to what we're talking about, to implement one of these treatments, to put a new coffee machine in, to have a partnership with the local university, to run a hackathon. It's exactly the same thing. And then you would go through this, and you would understand that it's going to be hard to do this. Getting organizations to change is a very difficult thing. Newton's first law of motion says a body at rest will remain at rest. By that I mean, if they're not doing it now, to get them to change their behavior is going to be very difficult. But the good news is once you change their behavior, then they will keep going. So it's hard to change habits, but once you do, what you will want them to do, if you do it properly and they buy into it, will become their new habit, and it will be very difficult to stop. So Newton's first law says a body at rest will remain at rest, and a body in motion will continue in motion. So you want to use that to your favor.
I have a question right now, yes, Bill, and this is related to this topic about physics. When you say something is in motion and it will continue in motion, and this is inertia. But today is a very special day. You will see it in a moment, because I have a picture I want to show to you. You don't know this picture, but look at this picture, and you know this situation. This is precisely 7 years ago when we sold our company, our first company.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So at that time, this is a picture we took in the lawyer when we received the check. Okay.
Yes.
So talking about entrepreneurial mindset, and before talking about this motion, we stopped. We made a hard stop at that time. And I am now again on the road, being an entrepreneur again, as you know.
Yeah.
And this is this famous sentence from 0 to 1. This is, we were not in motion anymore. And what, in your opinion, all these people that is today hearing to us need to do to begin in motion and to begin with an entrepreneur venture?
To get in motion again?
Yes. What is the motivation?
So this is actually, so let me just show you what I was going to say is, you have to find the window of opportunity. Talk about is essentially what this is a habit. And I'm going to refer to this book right here. Can you see it? The Power of Habit?
Yes.
Can you see it, Alberto?
Yes.
I recommend the book to everybody. You don't even need to read it. Just listen to it on audio as you're driving around. And the key thing is, to change people's habits, you have to find the window of opportunity. That's a time when they're willing to change their behavior, right? And so you have to create a window of opportunity, because most people aren't going to change their behavior at any time except within a window of opportunity. So when you think of a window of opportunity, that is a time in which you're more likely to change your habits. So the classic one is for consumer CPG companies, consumer product goods companies, is if their target customer is a female who's the head of a household, when does she set her buying habits? she actually, when they've studied this, she sets them when she's pregnant, because before that she has a whole bunch of buying patterns, but then when she gets pregnant, all of a sudden everything's up in the air. And so then that's your time when you have to get her to change her buying habits. And if you then get her to then come to your store to buy groceries, get her to come to your store to buy clothes, to get her to come to your store to electronics, that's a time when she will change. She will not just change on any Monday of the week. You have to find these windows of opportunity. And when you identify those windows of opportunity, then you move to change habits within it. So let me just give you an example of this. So when I was at IBM, we would go through all this stuff during the year and how they would need new computers and the like, and they would agree, but they wouldn't buy it, And then at the end of the year, I would often go and do the exact same presentation, and they would say, Bill, I'll buy it. Now, why was that? That was because they had money left in their budget at the end of the year. You might say, let's do it at the end of the year, or let's do it in the middle of the budgeting process, all of which would be good answers as well. But you have to identify a window of opportunity in which you can sell them something. So changing habits is exactly the same thing. How do you change someone's habit is selling them on changing their habits, because we don't want to change our habits. So once you identify these windows of opportunities, you set up a trigger. Let me just give you an analogy, Alberto. So Expedia or whatever you all use, Kayak, they know if you say, I'm looking at Madrid to Boston, they know that there's a window of opportunity that you're thinking of flying from Boston to Madrid. If they came up to me 99% of the days, I'm not going to be interested in a flight between Boston and Madrid. But because I've gone to Expedia or Kayak and I put in there, how much does a flight from Boston to Madrid cost? They know I'm in a window of opportunity. So what do? They don't just let me go. They say 2 seats are remaining at this price. And that's what you have to do. Okay, so let's go back to your example. And you'll see this over and over again. So what would I say? I would say, I don't have the picture of your people here.
You can see it. You can see it.
but what I would say is, you give them 6 months or whatever, and then they've kind of rested up, and then you say, okay, we're going to do a presentation about interesting opportunities and some interesting entrepreneurs who have been successful. And then you would get them to understand, here's opportunities out here. And then when something like COVID happens, COVID is an ultimate window of opportunity. Okay, our country needs us. There's a business opportunity. Let's do this. I was just talking to someone from Germany today, one of our former students, very young. And when COVID came, he didn't even have the expertise. But there's a window of opportunity because COVID happens. He went to the government and said, look, we will help you set up, mobile testing sites here in Germany. And this was a student. He was literally sitting in our class. He's probably 22 years old. But he went to the government, understood that window of opportunity, and said, I will help you on this. I will set up a business. We have this type of expertise. And he gave them a reason to then give them the business. Otherwise, they would never have gotten. So my answer quickly to that is windows of opportunity. They talk about it in that book by Charles Duhigg about triggers.
Jordi is asking that probably now and always, in times of a crisis,
yes,
where the windows of opportunity open the most, in your opinion?
That's exactly right. There's a lot of people who would say there's no fundamental behavioral change in people or organizations without a crisis. A crisis is an opportunity. If you look at it properly, a crisis is a terrific opportunity to change people's behavior. And if you're an entrepreneur, that's precisely what you want to do. I would say entrepreneurs don't just try to survive crisis. That's what they're made for. Entrepreneurs move fast. It's the mindset. And by the way, that's precisely what big corporations need. When you look at the success of companies in COVID, it's because they have fast clock speed. They see crisis as an opportunity.
Right. I have another picture to show to you. I have a couple, but look at this one. This is a very nice picture. I don't know if I showed it to you when I was there, but look at this picture.
Oh, wait.
It's not.
I only saw half of something.
Probably it's not finished. It's the picture when we became entrepreneurs. We were like 27. Imagine, I am now 49, close to 49. So it's a never-ending story, as you see, if we are able to show it to you.
Yeah, well, Bill, I think I said this to you before. There's a saying from Gabriel Marquez that says, "We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing."
Correct.
And we don't stop entrepreneuring because we get old. We get old because we stop entrepreneuring. Oh, look at these young guys, huh?
Yeah. Look at us. This is 1998.
Is that Feliz Navidad? Is that the Christmas tree behind you too?
Yeah. This was our first business trip, our first business meeting at Christmas in 1998, when we decided to begin as entrepreneurs before the bubble, the dot-com bubble. So you can imagine what could go wrong. Everything could go wrong, but we are still here. So deep things inside us create this entrepreneurial mindset. It was just a surprise for you to see these pictures.
Yeah. Boy, you were young then.
Yeah.
I think this.
I'm still a young man.
I think this really resonates with kind of one of the themes of this is, you've got to be fearless about moving forward, and you've got to that's what talking to Fabian, this entrepreneur, went through Delta V, who set up his he and his teammate in the United States, Felix, who he went to college with, is set up in the United States 50 centers already. He has 800 people. He's done that in less than 12 months. And Fabian has done similar things in Germany. He has, I think, 9 mobile centers to do COVID testing and COVID vaccination now. And it's a big business. He's got 100 people working for him. And here's the thing, to your point with your picture, Alberto, and I love this quote, and it comes from this book, which I don't think I mentioned last time. I recommend this book to every single one of you. I get paid nothing on it. It's called Think Again, Adam Grant. It's called The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. And they have this great quote in it. And when you put that picture up, you go, oh my God, we were so dumb then. Think of all the stuff we didn't know. And that's how you should be leading your life. Every year you should look back and say, my God, I was so dumb last year. That means you're growing. That means you're always in beta, right? Which is one of your themes. And this book just talks about that in spades too. And I think that's really, really important. That's what we need to do as individuals. That's what we need to do with startups. That's what we need to do with big corporations. We need to continually learn and know what we don't know and be fearless about going forward to feel confident that even though we don't know it, let's go learn it. And the only way you learn it is by getting on the field.
I have another quote. This is related to your clock speed and to the speed. Ignorance is quicker than intelligence. This is why we go so fast.
I like that. Is that an ignorance is faster than is what?
Intelligence.
Faster than intelligence.
No, I'm joking.
That kind of sounds like something Pablo Picasso would say. I don't know. I don't know who did this. I have these strange sentences in my mind, and they come across in my awful English. But for you, it's interesting. Intelligence is faster. Ignorance is faster than intelligence, and I think that's the point. Is Nobody knows anything. That's the point of this. Think again. Always be thinking again. You make the most intelligent hypotheses you can, but then you must test them because they will not be correct. Just like Carly and I teach, we congratulations, you've been accepted to Delta V, the premier accelerator, not just at MIT, but in the world for academic institutions. Now let us tell you something. We accepted you. We didn't accept your idea because your idea is not correct. What are you talking about? There's never been an idea that came out that was perfectly correct. And if it's correct today, there's going to be something wrong with it tomorrow. And you have to constantly be figuring it out. And ignorance is faster than intelligence fits that model very well.
Yes, it is. So I don't know if they have any questions in the chat. Where I'm checking the chat.
What companies are out there today? I'm always interested.
They are named by the names, so difficult for me. I know some of them,
but we have some companies we know.
Yeah,
we see Procter & Gamble, we see Schweppes, Enel around here, Pelayo, which is a Spanish insurance company.
Yeah,
we have Daimler, I see. Vodafone, we have.
Wow. Is the chat working?
Yes.
Is the room chat? Well, how do I get to see? Are there any questions here? Oh, we want to see the initial slide.
Amadeus.
In our classes, we always have chats flying around. So it's always interesting. But Americans are very aggressive. I think Europeans are more reserved. Barbara from Amadeus. Barbara, is that the
Coca-Cola also? They are
Coca-Cola,
saying,
Bogota Energy Group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Endesa, yes.
Yeah. The District of Ecuador. Oh, you go all the way down? Is that Quito? Enel. Yeah, Enel. We have a project in our class from Enel. There's tremendous enthusiasm. Look, the energy sector in the United States today is different than it was last week after what happened in Texas. By the way, the team's very excited about the Enel project. So
Pascual, they're saying also it's a dairy company.
Run out of time, and I just want to reiterate the major point that I wanted to make is that, if you want to have the purpose of today's talk was the long tail effect of adapting, entrepreneurship to be successful in your company. And while you want to run experiments, I would say you don't take a patient and just give them morphine. You take the patient, you be disciplined about assessing what's the problem, what's the root cause problem we want to solve here. And to do that, you look at events, you look at patterns of behavior, you get the evidence, and then once you know what the problem is, don't just put the solution in. Look at the decision-making unit, the decision-making process. Who are the people that we need to sell in the organization and get them to buy into it? Then bring your entrepreneurship project in, be it a training class, be it a corporate, be it a partnership, be it a new fund, be it an accelerator, incubator, whatever. And then when it's implemented, that they will buy into it. But then also don't just implement it, continue to work with those people so that the treatment, the program, that they understand the benefits of it. And that 4-step kind of process will give you lasting success with entrepreneurship programs, which reemphasizes what we talked about before, why it's so essential.
We have two more questions.
Two more questions.
One is, how do you convince big companies? You know, these big companies that they go to MIT for inspiration, to increase the number of explorers and reduce the number of controllers? How can you convince big companies to do this, to increase the number of explorers?
Yeah. So first of all, what we talked about this in our class on last Thursday. This needs to start in corporations at the board level. the board level, when you think about decision-making, your decision-making process, I now sit on boards. I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world, but I know that I'm a good board member because I'm pushing them to do these types of things, to understand, yes, we should have controllers in certain parts of our business, but we need more explorers in other parts of our business. And so when the board starts, it comes from the board, they put that onto the CEO, and then they ask for updates on it. It starts to happen in a business. And I think we have to start looking at how do we impact the board to understand how important it is. And to do that, we go back to the first presentation we had here, how that it's not the strongest that survives. It's not the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that adapts to change, because change is constant and it's going to be going faster and faster and faster. There is no company that has a manifest destiny that they are going to be successful even around 20 years from now. General Electric was seen as the ultimate bedrock company here in the United States, and it's not going to be around. The U.S. Postal Service, even government agencies are not going to be around. But I think you have to, to your question, Alberto, you have to say, this is why you have to do it. And you have to put it in the board to say, you have to educate the board to say, this is why you have to do it. Success has an expiration date on it. You'll be gone just like Lehman Brothers is gone. You'll be gone just like, even though IBM's still here, they're nowhere near the company they were before. Microsoft is nowhere near the company. How are you going to change? You need to be a little paranoid. So how are we going to do that? We need to innovate or die. Boards need to have it coming down. And then you need to have this kind of program where you assess it and make clear, here's the problem, here's how we're fixing it, and to sell it. What's the next question?
There are some questions, but Carly is covering you because Carly is giving some examples that you share in class.
As you know, Alberto, the best thing you can do as a leader is to hire smart people, right? That's the best thing you can ever do.
I agree. So I don't think we have time for more. Andres?
We have a couple more questions. Maybe we can cover one quick question and we close up.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Jordi. What type of impact could we expect from digital transformation on innovation management?
Okay, what type of impact could we expect from digital transformation on internet? Well, look, Jordi, digital transformation is inexorable. This is it's not really happening now. The rate of it is going to increase. And so this involves very well for innovation management. We saw at COVID that the companies who were still holding on to offline, the physical as opposed to the digital, those companies are getting wiped out. Just look at it. We have a speaker series we talk about. That's what they sell in China. They said, it's not that offline's going away. It's just they took the dial on digital and turned it up. And so when things get more digital, what does that mean? They become more measurable. And what do you want in innovation? You want to be more measurable. You want to be able to run more experiments, and you want to be able to run faster experiments. Now, there's one last question. I want to jump to Pascal. I don't know what company you're from, Pascal, but you seem quite French from your question. How about luck in entrepreneurship? As Thomas Jefferson said, I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. The best book of entrepreneurship of last year, I don't know if I mentioned it to you last time. Let me get it from here. I believe it's going to be impossible. I know it's only February of this year. This is going to be the best book about entrepreneurship. And this doesn't have entrepreneurship in the title. The best book of last year, Pascal, to your comment, is this book right here. And I don't think it ever mentions the word entrepreneurship. It's called The Biggest Bluff. It's by Anna Kournikova. And what she does is she's brilliant. She's a Russian woman who immigrated to the United States. And she got a PhD, and she's on the faculty, I believe, at Columbia. And she's studying what's the relationship between luck and skill. And so what does she do? She becomes a professional poker player. And this is a really, you go, why is that? And it's actually brilliant because in poker, there's so much skill involved, but there's also an element of luck. And so why is it that certain people are good poker players, but they don't win all the time? And that's what this book really delves into. So Pascal, I would tell you, how about luck in entrepreneurship? Yeah, I'm a great believer in luck. I find the harder I work, the more of it I have. I would tell you, it appears you have more luck if you're intelligent about how you set up hypotheses and you anticipate what's happening with technology and consumer behavior. And then when you see it happen, you step on the gas and go after it, just like Peloton did, just like Zoom did, just like Grubhub did, and other people in COVID. You have to understand that. But sometimes you get a hand that just doesn't work. And in COVID, we always talk about in COVID, there were three types of entrepreneurs. There was, first of all, the entrepreneurs who looked at COVID and they thought about it for a while and they said, our business isn't any good. And they folded their hand and they dropped out and they moved on to their next step. The second one are people said, I'm going to ignore COVID. I'm just going to plow straight ahead. And those people were resilient. They never gave up. They never gave up. And the third group of people said, oh, I see what COVID is. Let me think about this. This presents new opportunities for us. This is great in our business. Which was the worst one? The worst one was the middle one, who ignored COVID. Sometimes situations change, and the best thing you can do is fold your hand. And that will create more luck for you in the next one. So this idea that entrepreneurs never give up, and it's not true. You got to know when to give up. You got to know when to persevere. And to do that, there's some luck involved, Pascal. But it's a balance. That's what this book, The Biggest Bluff, is about. And I have a piece coming out of this, just writing about these two books that you'll see on the discipline of entrepreneurship.
Bill, Carly, we are running out of time. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you to all the people all the friends that they passed 1 hour with us, and we will be with our 4th meeting before summer.
In April.
And best of luck in Boston. And hopefully we can see each other personally in June. I will try to visit you
You can't see it right here, Andre, but I got a little needle stuck in this arm right here.
You got the vaccine?
I got the vaccine. The good news is I got the vaccine. The bad news is I got the vaccine because I have 2 comorbidities. I'm old and I'm fat and I'm ugly. But I'll take the vaccine any way I can get it.
Bill, they are asking if we can share the slides with the people that they were being here, or if we have the possibility or not.
Absolutely. And we'll also share with you this new edX course that just came out on anti-fragility, which I think people will really enjoy.
Excellent.
Very interesting and helpful. So everything.
Amazing.
The cube is our partner.
We'll try to share it on our Friday newsletter.
Right. Remember, we're your Iberian brothers here at the Trust Center.
Yeah. We know. And here in Spain, if you want to have your vaccine, you have to be a politician or someone really powerful here in Spain. So you are lucky, Bill.
Yeah, we don't have any politics in the United States.
Yeah, I know. Okay, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Carly, and see you in
the next session
in a couple of months.
Thank you so much.